Welcome back, and today I'm doing number 8 from my list of things to take into consideration before running away from the UK to live abroad. So number 8 on my list is cost of living surprises. So on the surface, Italy, which is where I am, might seem like a cheaper place to live than the UK, especially if you're coming from a big city like London. And yes, there are plenty of things that are more affordable, like fresh produce, local wine, dining out, especially in smaller towns, and even rent in certain regions. But once you settle in, you quickly realise that the cost of living comes with its own set of surprises, and not all of them are pleasant. So from my personal point of view, I would say the cost of the produce, compared to somewhere like in the UK, I see a lot of people banging on about the price of groceries and shopping. Completely understand that, completely understand where people are coming from. It's also kind of a consideration of mine at the time when I was forced to move away from the UK due to Brexit and move here to Italy because I have an Italian missus. So everything, before we moved here, I was in London, just outside Canary Wharf, and it was just ridiculously expensive. So it appealed to me to come here because shopping, for instance, I go to a market literally just across the road from where I live to get my peppers and tomatoes, all my fruit and vegetables basically. And for what we get, the price, how much it costs for the produce that we get here is just so much more cheaper than in England. In fact, hold on, I want to show you one thing. Just look at the size of this pepper. The size of my head. Literally, I could get 3-4 of these cheaper. I used to get ones in Sainsbury's that were probably about the size of my fist. Small, quite small ones. I can't even remember how much they were, but these, I could get like 4 or 5 of these probably for about a quarter of the price. Maybe even half the price of what I used to get them in Sainsbury's. So that's what I'd say, literally. The size of tomatoes as well. I haven't been shopping recently, but I'd have to show you one day. I want to do an actual vlog, just go to a market and just show you the difference of stuff. Put this back in the fridge. Now, the one thing that I'd say, that is not necessarily a downside, that's a positive, but the downside comes in, I suppose in England, the difference would be that it costs so much because they're nice and clean, perfect, what they consider perfect peppers. That one there was basically a bit distorted, and what you'll find is buying it from the market, you'll find that a lot of them are quite skanky. Coming from a British point of view, we're quite used to things being clean and tidy and perfect, and there's so much food waste in the UK because a banana's a bit wonky or something, it wouldn't sell in a market. We're a bit funny about things like that, us English people. So that's the only downside that I would say is, sometimes I get stuff from the market and in my own mind, my own English mind, I'll be looking at them going, oh, it's a bit dirty, a bit filthy and skanky, but you get by, you live with it. I put all of my stuff anyway, I put it into bicarbonate soda with water and wash it and give it a good old scrub. But yeah, in England, you wouldn't necessarily have to do that. Mostly everything will be clean and washed. Even the stuff that you would get in a supermarket here, some of it's a bit skanky, to us English people. So that's the only real downside, but really it's a bit of a plus because the size of some of the stuff that you can get from markets is just immense. Huge great big tomatoes like this big. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that in England. You just get the standard small tomatoes like that, but these are like huge, ginormous tomatoes, juicy tomatoes. Again, yeah, you have to make sure that you wash them all because they might be covered with pesticides and all of that stuff. So yeah, I suppose that's the only other downside. But I'm not actually a meat eater. I'm a plant-based diet type person. I gave up eating meat back in 2017, 2018. Numerous reasons, ethical reasons, global reasons. I just found personally, having made a switch to it, I've just found it's just a lot better for my body, basically. I found that eating meat was making me a lot more bloated and a lot more lethargic. Since swapping to just eating plant food, I just find myself having a lot more energy, and I would honestly say that I don't really feel that ill ever anymore since I've stopped eating any kind of processed foods, meat and such like. I'd strongly recommend it. At least try it once, just try it for a month. Just try to just stop eating dirty processed meat, which has kind of been a bit of a problem for me in a way here, because everything is processed meat here. You've got all sorts of salamis and all sorts of these sorts of meats, but it doesn't really interest me really. I just like eating vegetables and fruit. I mean, that's one of the things. Before I left England, I got kidney stones, and I just basically looked into what has actually caused my kidney stones and how to stop them, and basically I ended up just changing my whole diet, and I haven't had kidney stones since. And yeah, I just drink lots of plain water. Sometimes when you get the fruit from the market, we make some nice smoothies, like fruit juices. I like to blend them up and stuff and put them into ice lolly molds, for my child. I've gone off piste already, but hidden costs. What I would say is that certain things that I took for granted in England while shopping, I'm specifically thinking about stir fry stuff. I used to love stir fry stuff when I used to live in London. Just go to Sainsbury's and I would buy a already chopped up stir fry vegetable thing for £1 or something from Sainsbury's, get a nice sauce and whack it all together in my wok. That sort of stuff you won't really find so much. I mean, unless you find some kind of a Chinese shop, which there is quite a lot of them here in Italy, Chinese shops. So you would be able to find it eventually, but you wouldn't really find it necessarily in a standard Italian market, because to be quite honest, over here all they sell is Italian stuff, pasta, pizza, pretty much all that they sell. You do find in some supermarkets they do have a world food section, but that's the thing. You'll basically end up paying a ton of money basically for that sort of stuff, imported stuff, which I don't suppose the stir fry stuff I used to get from Sainsbury's is imported. I guess it was grown within I'm not even sure if it would be grown in the UK, but it wouldn't cost that much. It was only like a £1, just for some stir fry vegetables. But here you literally just have to go and buy the vegetables, chop them all up yourself and make it myself. So yeah, things like energy bills. I mean, this is what I say about the whole reason I'm doing these videos is everyone's running away from the UK because energy bills have gone up and all of these different things, high taxes. But you'll find that anywhere. You'll find that pretty much most countries. You're just running away from one thing to another. So energy bills sometimes can be like quite high, notoriously expensive, especially during the winter. But I mean, I'm just a hippie, so I try to cut down on using these things like electric and gas during the winter. I'm basically just like one of my elderly parents. I don't know if you can see it up here. This thing here is a ceramic pot that I put those little candle tea light things underneath that are only like €1 for like 100 of these little tea light candles. And you put it underneath here, it heats up the ceramic pot, and it heats the whole of this room that I'm sat in right now. As much as I'm using electricity for all my computers and a light, basically just save ourselves that little bit of money by just having this kind of natural little heater. And in some cases as well, out on the balconies, we've got lots of solar powered lights. Literally got one that you can just leave outside on the balcony all day. It charges up and I can bring it in, stick it in the living room, and it lights up the whole living room, just like a lamp. So I try to not let, that's my whole purpose in life now, is I don't really want to have to be filling pockets of people like Jacob Rees-Mogg. I don't know whether or not he's actually got money coming in from a company that's an energy company, but I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest. Greedy little cunt. So yeah, basically I don't want my money going into pockets of these elite wankers. So energy bills doesn't necessarily really affect me that much because it's mostly my girlfriend that pays for it because I'm jobless. So she's basically paying for such like here. So what else have we got here? We've got import duties of online shopping costs. Again, stuff that I took for granted that was just so easy to get when I was in the UK, stuff off of Amazon. You don't necessarily get as easier here in Italy. I mean, some parts of Europe you might do. I mean, maybe in Germany or somewhere like that, but especially here in Italy, I'm finding I'm having to import a lot of stuff from China or whatever, and that's all got a lot of cost to it. So high taxes and complicated systems. I've discussed taxes and such like before in one of my other videos. For myself, it kind of annoyed me when I first got here. My girlfriend sorted out my tax system. I moved here and I had £20,000 in my bank account. First time, I must say, ever that I've ever had £20,000 in my bank account. Quite shocking, really, to be honest, that being 40 something years old and only having £20,000 in my account. So yeah, I literally came here and filled out all the forms and did all of that. Got my accountant, who's one of my girlfriend's friends, he sorted it all out. And literally the first thing that happened was they took £10,000 off of me. Just literally raped me of £10,000, which I don't know whether I'll ever see again, but I don't understand any of these things. I don't understand taxes in general, to be honest. So all of those people that are just going off to other countries to go and become digital nomads, from what my understanding of it is that you can either still continue to pay your taxes in your home country or you paying them in the country where you're living. So you'd have to definitely check into that. There's actually a good video after I finish these top 10s. I've got a few videos of people, basically tax lawyers, that are giving advice to, if you're leaving the UK, where best to go. So owning a car isn't cheap. Again, I don't really pay for that. My girlfriend pays for that. But from her own perspective, she says it's expensive. It's quite expensive to run a car. I mean, I remember that from being in England, and that's why I don't want to own a car. But at the same time, I don't want to use public transport. I can't stand public transport and having to mix with loads of other tossers. But thankfully, I have a car over here and I use that to take my daughter to school with. But my girlfriend says the insurance is expensive and the maintenance and such like is quite expensive here in this country. Rent and property, again, I don't really know that myself because my girlfriend's paid off the mortgage on this place, so I don't have to pay any of that. In many ways, I'm quite thankful. There is some things that I'm actually quite thankful for in life, believe it or not. One of them is that I don't own a property. At the same time, on the flip side, I wish I did own a property, kind of, because I mean, at some stage, I'm probably going to have to own my parents' house in the future sometime when they've sadly departed. But at this present point in life, I don't know how I'm going to do that because, truth be known, I've only got £2,000 of that £20,000 left in my account, and literally part of that is from £1,000 of money that my girlfriend has managed to somehow get through some kind of a benefits or something through the Italian government. I've somehow managed to get £6,000 into my Italian account. So my girlfriend basically told me to transfer £1,000 of that into my English account, which I have an English account because I also have another daughter in England and I have to pay maintenance to her. So I have an English account so I can transfer money to her mother. So I've transferred 1,000 to that. So everyday expensive add up. Groceries are cheaper than in the UK if you stick to local seasonal items. But imported goods, international brands, or anything organic or a speciality, that's where prices jump up. Also, bulk discounts and large supermarkets are less common. Again, in supermarkets, in a Sainsbury's or whatever, you might be able to find like 2 for the price of 1 or 3 for the price of 2, those sorts of deals. I've never seen anything like that here. You're just constantly having to pay big money for imported goods and international brands, which again, at one stage in the UK, these things were quite cheap, buying things in bulk. Funnily enough, I come from town where I don't know if he's a billionaire, he's a millionaire, but he owns basically, is it JD Sports or what's the other one? Not JD Sports, the other one. Sports Direct. So Sports Direct owner, Mike Ashley, who also owned Newcastle United at once upon a time. I think he might actually even own Rangers now. I can't remember. He might have sold that. But he literally started his business with a sports shop in my local town where he just used to, literally for about 10 years of my life growing up, it used to be a closing down sale at this sports shop. So he used to get huge, great big bulk discounts or whatever of sports equipment, and he used to sell it cheaply in his sports shops, saying that it was a closing down sale. So he just constantly had endless people buying sports equipment from the shop. And shit you not, literally for about 10 years, as I say, 10-15 years of my life, that shop was closing down, and it just made bundles and bundles of money from having this shop. So now I believe he now owns Sports Direct, and I don't know, he might even have brought places like Debenhams or any of these other big high street retail groups. So yeah, that's how he made his millions. But yeah, over here you don't find, there's endless pound shops. I don't think they're even pound shops anymore in the UK, are they? There used to be lots of pound shops, but I've never seen a pound shop here. My girlfriend says to me there is shops, for €1, shops that are selling everything for €1. I've never seen any personally. And then healthcare. Healthcare isn't always free. Like in the UK, you have to pay for your healthcare, out of pocket expenses for prescriptions, specialist appointments, or private care. If you're not fully registered with the national system, you may also need like private insurance or end up paying for your care. These are all things, again, you have to take into consideration. Last time I was back in the UK and I went to Sainsbury's, I was going mad just picking up things that I just can't find here and just buying things, just random things that I just haven't seen forever here. But in England, you just can seem to get them kind of freely. As I say, just simple things like stir fry and Indian stuff. I used to eat quite a lot of naan bread, which you wouldn't really find so much here. You just got Italian bread, that's it, and Italian rice, Italian pasta, Italian pizza. If you like those sorts of things, don't move to Italy especially, but check whatever country it is that you decide to run away to, whether or not you can find these sorts of things. It says here, tips for managing the cost of living in Italy. Do your research on regional differences. So for instance, life in Milan is very different from life in Perugia. So Milan is a lot more, I suppose, like a Western, you might find stir fry stuff a lot more easier than you would in Rome, up in Milan. But here in Rome, there is occasionally you might find a Chinese takeaway, but they'll also be selling pizza. It's basically first and foremost pizza everywhere, pizza. Budget for unexpected costs. Always leave a cushion for surprises. Track your expenses. Speak to other expats. Work with a local accountant. As I say, if you're running away from the UK because everything's really expensive, you will find everywhere. You go to America, the people there will also say exactly the same. Again, I've got another video of an American guy saying about the problems that they have in America. So wherever you really go, you're going to find problems, basically. So at the end of all these videos, I want to do like my conclusion video. But all I'll say is, I've noticed the other day, I've seen in the news that Farage, that grotty little cunt bag, has won, and everyone seems to be going for reform, the headbangers party. But all I'd say is, Labour have been in charge now for just over a year, and it doesn't, as the saying goes, Rome was not built in a day. It's going to take a lot of time for Labour to get their shit in gear and sort out the problems of the last 14 years of Conservative rule. I think I've discussed before the winter fuel allowance. I know everyone's banging on about it, but as my mum said, she said most of the people, or the elderly people nowadays, would have lived through the Second World War and not having heating and having to ration things anyway, so they'd probably be quite used to that, and they are quite happy to just put another layer of clothes on if they're cold. You just got to think logically about these things and not irrationally, which is what most people seem to be doing, really. Everyone's just gone mad. Once you see one of these negative videos, then they all start going into your algorithm. So if you watch one thing with some person cracking on about how reform's going to solve everything, then you're going to see a lot more of those videos, and you're basically being programmed into just voting against your own well-being, which is what happened in the case of Brexit. Brexit was a disaster. No one can honestly tell me that Brexit has worked out for the UK. Anyone? Don't think so. So you've got to try and kind of put a bit of faith. I mean, don't put faith in cunts like Farage, who's basically going to try and sell off the NHS and make you, all of you people, have to pay for healthcare. He's a banker at the end of the day. People used to complain about Rishi Sunak because he was a banker. Nigel Farage is exactly the same. He doesn't care about working people. He only cares about businesses and making them and all of his friends a lot more money. He doesn't care about the average Joe in Clacton who is struggling to pay their electricity bill. All he cares about is the electricity company getting their profits. That's all he cares about. So you've really got to think and learn to use your brains and learn critical thinking and really think about these things. I will say briefly now, so if everyone decides to leave the UK and go off to Thailand, I guarantee you start to see in Thailand that prices will start to go up because there'll be an influx of people that are all getting their taxes or not paying as many taxes and have lots of money. And they're basically increase their prices because they want you to start paying more. You've really got to think about these things. Prices will start to go up and it will just destabilize, the Thai people will start thinking exactly the same as what English people running away from foreigners in England will start to think. They'll start to hate foreigners coming to their country. Well, I believe they probably already do in a way anyway. All these tourists coming to go to the beach that was in The Beach, the film, and just shitting the place up basically. And same with Bali. Everyone legs it off to Bali and you'll start to see the prices go up and you basically get to the point that you're just like, well, it hasn't really worked out me running away from the UK to this place. I'm still getting violated for taxes. Again, I've got another great video of a guy that had been to Dubai. He lived in Dubai for 2 years and now he's just like, I've had enough of Dubai, I need to get out of here. So those are videos that I'm going to focus on once I've finished doing these top 10 tips. So that's me done again for today, and see you later. Ciao, adios. Actually, I also want to add to that as well and say that when you're a foreigner in a foreign country, you will tend to find that people try to overcharge you. So for instance, here in Italy, it has been known that if you was to get a taxi or an Uber, people will end up overcharging you for certain things. And it's the same as if you go to a market, or I don't know, if you're getting some kind of a repair done in your house or a repair done to your car, they tend to chuck another tax on top basically because you're foreign and they just feel as though you can be exploited. So you'll find that people will start taking advantage of you and trying to get you to pay more. Again, that's just another thing to watch out for. See you later. Bye.